All right. Today we're going to be talking about the psychology of the fourth house in astrology, giving you the full meaning explained. First, we're going to be going through the components of the fourth house, the different aspects to give you a more granular, detailed look of what the fourth house represents psychologically, internally in your life. And then we're going to go through the quality aspects. So, what does a fourth house look like when it's healthy, psychologically, unhealthy, psychologically, and how to evaluate it in your chart, but also in your life, because you can just look at your life. You don't always have to look at the birth chart to know if there's things that you need to heal and fix in your incarnation. So we go to the major components. The first one is moksha. So moksha in astrology represents liberation, freedom, spiritual awakening, emotions. It is the watery aspects of this incarnation, right? We get the four goals. We went to Dharma in the first house, then we went to Artha, Kama, and now we're at Moksha, which is the liberation, the expansion, the transcendent. It is the emotional realm, the feeling realm, the spiritual realm of manifestation, because this is our main goal as spiritual beings, is to evolve spiritually, to leave the death rebirth cycle, which is what liberation, freedom actually means. I mean, it also means relaxation, contemplation, inner work, things of that nature on this planet. But overall, the main goal of moksha is to end that constant, pesky death rebirth cycle. We were constantly burning off our karma until it is gone and we just dissipate into the ether. All right? So, also angle, fourth house. So not only is the fourth house a moksha house, a liberation, freedom, emotional house, it is also an angle, which is a powerhouse. It is the houses of action, A for action. And, initiating things, moving forward with things, having power, and making the, let's say, not effort, but just taking action, taking initiative, and putting forth energy. How about that? Putting forth one's energy into whatever that house means. So when you synthesize the two, you have the emotional, spiritual action or strength of action, because power. So the fourth house is the emotional powerhouse. It is the powerhouse because you have the four powerhouse houses, 1, 4, 7, 10, the angles, the Kendra houses, and in the fourth, you have that emotional moksha aspect. So the emotional power, your ability to put forth emotional power, your ability to energize yourself emotionally, be aware of your emotions, and to direct your emotional energy towards something that feels good or produces positive emotions, because this is happening if you are conscious. Being able to transcend the material, the desires, and the individual self towards something that is more expansive and more transcendent and more meaningful, more everlasting, because that is what spirit is. That's what emotions are. They outlast the physical. They are more enduring and more fundamental to reality than your actual physical body, than your desires, your fleeting desires, and your own individualized self. Okay? So that's the synthesis. And it is the core, the foundation of your emotional state, is where you regulate your emotions. It's where you channel your energy. It is where you heal your internal space. It is also a hidden house. That's what moksha means. Moksha is a hidden house. So it is a private aspect. The private life is centered in the fourth house. So not everyone's going to see it. Only the people that you care about are going to see it. Okay? And even a lot of those people will not see it. So when it comes to planets in the fourth house, these are hidden planets. These are planets that what's happening to those planets or how they're manifesting will be more private, will be more internal, will be more based off of your emotional body, your subtle body, which is what the fourth house represents. Okay? And these are the planets you will be using to regulate your emotions. Now, benefics do better in the fourth house, because that means you're going to have more of a lighter, softer, more positive inner emotional state. Not necessarily outwardly. Your outward attitude, what you express, will be more of a first house manifestation, or the sun, or the lord of the first house, what you present, or very powerful planets that are prominent, say also in the 10th, so first and 10th house. But the fourth house is hidden. So you could have some difficult stuff going on in the fourth house and nobody would know. You're dealing with your inner demons, you're dealing with a lot of trauma, insecurities, fears, because you have intense afflicted malefics there, or intense afflicted benefics there, just planets there that are just in bad shape and no one would know. But in your private life, you come home and that's where it all becomes unpacked. Fourth house comes alive as soon as you come home or you go into your private life, your lair. So even away from your partner, even if you live with your partner, okay? Now, when it also comes to planets, these are what you use to establish yourself and regulate your emotions. All right? And we go around the circle, right? So we start with 1, inspiration. You're taking action. You were inspired. You have an idea. You have a vision of how you want to live in the world or something you need to fulfill your destiny. You start at the first house. You then go to the second. You start holding on to it, being responsible for it, cultivating it, taking care of it, almost like watering a seed. That's the second house. Third house is you develop those skills so you become better at agriculture, permaculture. You get better soil, you get better farming techniques, you develop your social skills, you work with other people, get their advice, work with them to continue crafting and improving the manifestation that came from your inspiration. Then you go to the fourth house, which is your emotional place. Now you're starting to regulate and seeing how is this making you feel. You're following your inspiration, you're manifesting it, you're developing it, improving it, and developing yourself along the process and working with other people. But how is it making you feel? Does it feel good? And you're taking actions that feel good. A healthy fourth house, you go over here, a healthy fourth house means that you are able to respond to things that make you feel good. And your emotional guidance system, your internal guidance system, your intuition is refined and healthy. You can take actions that feel good. You can direct your life in ways that are emotionally fulfilling, satisfactory. You feel emotionally peaceful inside. You're able to take the actions that go along with developing your spiritual aspects of life, your emotional aspects of life, right? Emotional and spiritual are actually two sides of the same coin. They're pretty much the same thing. It just depends on how religious or spiritual you are. But if you're more materialistic and more of a psychological believer when it comes to astrology, well then, yeah, emotions. And if you're more spiritual, then spirit, soul, same thing. Subtle body, I don't care either way. We're all saying the same shit. So a healthy fourth house means that you're able to take emotional action. You're able to contemplate and look inside of yourself and be private and be introspective and be intuitive, connecting to that inner guidance system that is being essentially, well, the way to think about it is your emotions are like alert systems. So negative emotions are like a fire alarm, or a negative emotion is like getting slapped in the face, right? And some people still get slapped in the face or ignore the fire alarm and continue doing what they're doing. They're not listening to their emotions because the emotions have invaluable information from higher states or higher realms of being, like the astral or your higher self. That's how they communicate, is through emotions. And so somebody with a healthy fourth house can listen to their positive emotions, follow that guidance system, go with what feels good, and continue to facilitate those actions, and also constantly checking back into themselves to make sure that they are still and operating from a place of truth and emotional fulfillment, not insecurity, fear, and pain. That can be more difficult if there's malefics in the fourth. Somebody might have more difficulty expressing their true emotions. This is where we get to the unhealthy aspect. If you have malefics in the fourth, especially if they're doing poorly, or difficult planets, and we'll get to the evaluation in a second, but an unhealthy fourth house is somebody who might be emotionally dysregulated, unable to find peace, insecure, or in a lot of pain whenever they're alone with themselves. They don't want to look inside of themselves. They're constantly on the go, and they're not evaluating to see, is this action I'm taking leading to something emotionally positive or negative? Or am I doing this thing out of a positive or negative emotion? Am I doing this action out of insecurity or positivity, strength and abundance, or scarcity? It's the fourth house. Again, emotional action. You are taking actions that are emotionally driven, and it depends on if it's manifesting healthy or unhealthy. So if you find yourself constantly feeling like things aren't emotionally fulfilling like they should be, or you're finding yourself in these toxic cycles, that means your fourth house has some work to be done. And so you want to look at, for the evaluation, you want to look at the planets in the fourth house. You also want to look at the fourth lord, meaning the planet ruling the fourth sign, holding the fourth cusp. In this case, it'd be Cancer, so the moon. And you want to look at the moon itself, because the moon is the natural karaka, producer of the fourth house. Because the moon is our emotional body. It is what we use to connect with the world. It is what we use to drive our actions that are emotionally rooted in our internal space. It's our internal world, the fourth house. So it's a hidden house, like I said. It's what drives us to take actions in an emotional way. And it is one of the most important houses because what matters most is how we feel. All we want to do is feel happy and peaceful and content. That is really all we want to do. That is the spiritual fulfillment. That is the spiritual path. And that looks different for everyone. But that's why you go through the cycle of following your inspiration, taking action on your inspiration, materializing it and manifesting it, developing it and socializing and interacting and exchanging this manifestation with other people and working with other people to continue working on it, and then evaluating how you feel before you start moving on to the next realm or the next phase of the zodiac cycle or the planetary cycle or the house cycle, not planetary, the house cycle. How is it making you feel before you start more strongly committing to it and establishing it as something that's intrinsically you? Make sure it feels good. Look inside of yourself. This is all about the fourth house. I teach this a lot on this channel. It's about the inner work. Fourth house is inner work. Having a good fourth house is an incredibly powerful gift. And if you have an afflicted or difficult fourth house, by looking at if there's malefics in there, if there's poor dignity or afflicted planets in there, if the fourth lord's in bad shape or the moon is in bad shape, if those things are happening, then you work on those things, you heal those parts of yourself and you develop it because, again, we all have free will. Astrology is not deterministic. It is not fated. You are not doomed. You're not cooked. If you have a difficult chart or fourth house, fourth lord, moon, all those things, you can do it. You just have to be willing to look inside of yourself, especially when it comes to the fourth house. And if you're feeling emotionally unfulfilled, emotionally insecure, emotionally stunted or inhibited, that's one of probably the most common is feeling emotionally repressed and inhibited because the fourth house is that action house, but you feel like you're oppressed. You need to let those emotions go out. You need to process those emotions to regulate the emotions you're feeling in the moment. If you have a back catalog of emotions, you're not going to be able to properly pay attention to the emotions that are happening in the present moment because you also have to worry about the past emotions you haven't been dealing with. So you got to go back and deal with those emotions to properly assess the emotion that you're working with in that moment. You understand what I'm saying? Okay? Back catalog of emotions, if you're repressing yourself, repressing emotions because you have a difficult fourth house, that means you're not going to be able to properly assess the present moment because the emotions, because these past emotions that haven't been processed are going to pretty much drown out the true present emotion that you're feeling in this moment. That's all I have for you. Thank you for listening to my ramblings. If you resonate with what I said, or if you want any guidance or have any questions, please down below, I will answer. I answer all of the messages, at least directed at me. And in the next video, we're going to be doing the fifth house. Yep. So psychology of the fifth house in this series. We started with the first house, psychology of all the houses. Next one is going to be the fifth. Thank you for your time. Cheers.